Do you have anything in this book about the Olmecs?
No, not really. I mentioned them briefly. I explored the Olmec mystery in considerable depth.
Ancient America is full of mysteries, that's no doubt, but few are as jaw-dropping as the enigma of the Olmecs. Known for their colossal stone heads and advanced knowledge, the Olmecs left behind clues that still baffle experts today. Enter Mr. Curious Joe Rogan, reacting with awe, questions, and wild theories. Why did the Olmecs carve 20-ton heads? How did they move them? And what knowledge did they really possess? This isn't just history, because it's a deep dive into one of the oldest unsolved puzzles. Get ready, because you're about to enter the world of the unexplained. Ancient America's biggest mystery. These guys, the Olmec, were around way before the Maya and the Aztecs, and yet we still barely know who they were or what they were really up to. If you've ever seen those massive stone heads, like enormous, weighing several tons, yeah, that's the Olmecs. Joe Rogan has mentioned them on his podcast a few times, usually when the convo drifts into ancient civilizations, lost knowledge, or weird historical anomalies that make you question everything you thought you knew. So here's the thing. The Olmecs lived in what's now Mexico, around 1500 BCE. That's seriously ancient. And somehow they managed to carve and transport these giant stone heads without wheels, without metal tools, at least as far as we know, and without leaving behind a clear written record of how they did it. That alone is enough to get the conspiracy gears turning. How did they move these things through the jungle? Why did they even make them in the first place? And here's what's interesting. The heads have distinct facial features that have sparked all kinds of debates, even crazy theories about contact with Africa or other ancient civilizations across the ocean. Rogan-style questions, you know? Now, what really gets people talking, and what Rogan often digs into, is the idea that these ancient people might have had knowledge or technology that was lost to time. There are signs the Olmecs had advanced understanding of astronomy, complex social systems, and even spiritual rituals involving psychedelic plants. Were they the original civilization that kick-started everything in Mesoamerica? Did they leave behind knowledge that later cultures like the Maya built upon? We just don't know, and that mystery is what keeps the conversation alive. The cradle of Mesoamerican civilization, the Olmec, often come up as the starting point when we talk about ancient civilizations in the Americas. They're sometimes called the mother culture of Mesoamerica, and for good reason. Yup, long before the Maya and the Aztecs left their mark, the Olmec were building complex societies, carving massive stone heads, and laying the groundwork for much of what would shape later cultures in the region. Their story begins in a humid, tropical region along the Gulf Coast of present-day Mexico, mostly in the modern states of Veracruz and Tabasco. This area, full of rivers, swamps, and lush vegetation, wasn't just beautiful. It was ideal for agriculture and supported some of the earliest urban centers in Mesoamerica. The Olmec civilization began to emerge around 1500 BCE, with its heartland centered in a zone stretching from San Lorenzo in the west to La Venta in the east. These two sites, along with Tres Zapotes, are among the most important archaeological remains we have of the Olmec. San Lorenzo, the oldest, started as a small village, but grew into a large and organized city with drainage systems, mounds, and colossal stone heads, some weighing up to 20 tons. Their engineering skills, as well as their ability to organize labor, speak volumes about the sophistication of Olmec society. La Venta, which rose to prominence after San Lorenzo declined, became the spiritual and ceremonial center of the Olmec world. This site is famous for its massive pyramid made of earth and clay, one of the earliest monumental constructions in the Americas. It also had plazas, altars, and tombs that reflect a deeply religious and hierarchical society. The Olmec didn't just build things. They also developed a rich culture full of symbolic art, early forms of writing, and perhaps even the beginnings of the Mesoamerican calendar system. Their jaguar motifs, often blending human and animal traits, suggest a mythology and worldview that influenced later civilizations in profound ways. What makes the Olmec heartland so remarkable isn't just what was built there. It's also how central it was to the spread of ideas. The Gulf Coast might have been the birthplace of ball games, writing systems, and religious practices that echoed through centuries of Mesoamerican history. Olmec influence can be seen in distant parts of Mexico, suggesting they were part of a broad network of trade and cultural exchange. The big heads. These massive, staring faces, some towering over 9 feet tall and weighing as much as a school bus, are among the most iconic pieces of ancient American art. And here's the thing, they're not just old, they're absolutely mind-blowing. Made over thousands of years ago in what is now Mexico, these heads leave us asking a ton of questions. How were they made? How did anyone move them without wheels or animals? And most of all, why? As it turns out, these stone giants are more than just ancient sculptures. They're windows into a society that was deeply complex, highly organized, and obsessed with power, identity, and memory. And surprisingly, they've even made their way into pop culture today. Let's start with the basics. The creation of the heads. The Olmecs didn't mess around when it came to craftsmanship. These people weren't working with metal tools or machinery. They shaped each massive head out of solid basalt, a tough volcanic rock that's basically the last thing you'd want to carve by hand. Yet somehow they managed to chisel detailed features: thick lips, wide noses, helmet-like headgear, and strong jawlines. Each head looks slightly different, suggesting they were portraits, probably of real individuals, most likely powerful rulers or warriors. These weren't just decorations, they were statements. They said, "This is who rules here. This is who matters." It's kind of like Mount Rushmore, but thousands of years older and without a single explosive involved. The next wild part is transportation. The basalt used to carve these heads didn't come from right next door. In fact, many of the stones were hauled from quarries over 50 miles away. That's like dragging a truck-sized boulder from one city to another with no roads, no trucks, and no cranes. Some archaeologists think the Olmecs might have floated the heads down rivers on rafts or dragged them across the ground on wooden sledges, maybe using logs as rollers. But honestly, no one knows exactly how they did it. It's one of those ancient engineering miracles, like the pyramids or Stonehenge. The mystery is part of the appeal. It makes these heads even cooler. But what did they mean to the Olmecs? That's where things get really interesting. These heads were more than just impressive artwork. They were powerful symbols. Their size alone demanded attention. Most were found in ceremonial centers, arranged in specific ways that suggest a deep ritual or political purpose. Some scholars think they were part of ancestor worship, honoring dead rulers and keeping their presence alive among the living. Others believe they were public reminders of authority, giant faces meant to stare down anyone thinking of stepping out of line. Imagine walking into a city plaza and being greeted by a 10-foot stone head glaring at you. That would definitely make you think twice about breaking the rules. Also, notice those helmet-like carvings on the heads. Some researchers think they might represent ancient Mesoamerican ball players. The ball game wasn't just a sport, it had religious and political meaning. It symbolized cosmic battles and sometimes even involved human sacrifice. So if the heads do represent players, they might not be just athletes. They could be ritual warriors or spiritual champions. Kind of like LeBron James mixed with a priest, but with a lot more at stake. Today, the legacy of the Olmec heads is still very much alive, not just in museums, but in pop culture too. They've shown up in everything from cartoons to video games to hip-hop album covers. In the animated show Legends of the Hidden Temple, the talking head named Olmec was literally the centerpiece of the game, guiding players through ancient-themed challenges. And let's not forget video games like Tomb Raider, Uncharted, or Animal Crossing, where ancient stone heads often pop up as mysterious relics or collectible treasures. Even in movies like Indiana Jones or The Road to El Dorado, you can spot clear inspiration from Olmec-style monuments and architecture. These heads have become shorthand for ancient mystery, a symbol that immediately tells you something powerful and forgotten is at play. And then there's the modern art world, where artists continue to take inspiration from the Olmecs. Their bold, stylized features have influenced sculpture, design, even streetwear. Some hip-hop and reggaeton artists have used Olmec imagery in album art and music videos to represent cultural roots and ancestral power. It's a way of saying, we come from something big, something epic. Decoding other Olmec language and icons. Another fascinating aspect of Olmec iconography lies in their smaller, portable artworks, especially figurines made of jade, ceramic, and stone. These figures often show humans with supernatural features, baby-like bodies with adult faces, downturned mouths, almond eyes, and helmet-like headgear. These recurring features aren't random, they're loaded with symbolic content. For example, the were-jaguar motif, seen in sculptures and carvings, depicts a creature with feline traits and a human-like form. This hybrid being might represent a shamanic transformation or a mythological entity connected to rain, fertility, or power. The jaguar in particular was a potent symbol in Olmec belief systems, associated with strength and the spiritual world. Alongside these figurines and sculptures, the Olmecs also carved strange, glyph-like symbols into stone altars, stelae, and portable objects. These aren't full-fledged writing systems like the later Maya script, but they suggest the early stages of symbolic communication. Some of the glyphs are abstract, spirals, crosshatches, or dots, while others resemble faces, animals, or plants. Scholars debate whether these symbols recorded historical events, mythological stories, or calendar dates. What's clear, though, is that these carvings weren't decorative. They carried significance and were likely meant to be read by those familiar with Olmec cosmology. Patterns across Olmec art also reveal themes central to their culture. Duality is one such theme, seen in figures that merge human and animal traits, or in symmetrical designs that may reflect balance between opposing forces, life and death, rain and drought, sky and earth. Many motifs also suggest a preoccupation with transformation, especially through shamanism. Shamanic transformation might explain why so many figurines seem to be caught mid-change, their bodies frozen between the human and the supernatural. It's almost like these artworks capture a moment of transcendence, when the boundaries between worlds become porous. Interpreting Olmec art is a bit like decoding a lost language. There's no Rosetta Stone for Olmec symbolism, no surviving texts to spell it all out. But by analysing recurring patterns, comparing artifacts across sites, and considering the broader context of Mesoamerican belief systems, researchers have started to piece together a rough grammar of Olmec iconography. Still, much remains a mystery, and that's part of what makes studying the Olmecs so compelling. Their art continues to speak, if only in whispers, across millennia. Collapse and disappearance. What happened to the Olmec? The Olmec left a legacy that shaped the future of Mesoamerican civilization. But by 400 BCE, their cities were abandoned, their political centers collapsed, and their presence in the historical record fades away. What caused the decline and disappearance of such a powerful and innovative culture? Scholars and archaeologists have debated this for decades, and while no single answer has been confirmed, several compelling theories attempt to explain what may have happened. One of the most widely accepted theories is environmental change. The Olmec heartland was a lush but challenging region with heavy rainfall, rivers, and swamps. It was fertile, but also prone to flooding. Some researchers believe that changes in the climate, possibly a shift in rainfall patterns or prolonged droughts, could have made agriculture unsustainable. Since Olmec cities depended heavily on farming, especially maize cultivation, environmental instability could have undermined their food supply, forcing populations to abandon cities like San Lorenzo and La Venta in search of more stable conditions. In addition to drought or flood, there's the possibility of soil exhaustion. Over-farming the land without proper agricultural techniques could have degraded the soil, reducing crop yields over time. Another strong theory involves political and social upheaval. Like many complex societies, the Olmec had ruling elites who controlled trade networks, religious ceremonies, and agricultural production. If those elites lost power, whether due to internal rebellion, succession crises, or corruption, the social fabric of Olmec society could have unraveled. Evidence of violence and destruction in some Olmec sites suggests that rival factions or neighboring groups may have challenged the central authorities. Once elite power structures broke down, the incentive to maintain large ceremonial centers would have diminished. People may have dispersed into smaller, more manageable communities. A related factor could be external invasion or conflict. While there's no clear evidence of a full-scale war wiping out the Olmec, there are signs of increasing interaction with neighboring cultures. It's possible that rival groups grew more powerful and gradually pushed the Olmec out of their territory, either through military confrontation or competition over resources and trade routes. The rise of other Mesoamerican centers, like the Zapotec in the valley of Oaxaca, could have drawn away trade, influence, and people. In this sense, the decline of the Olmec might not have been a dramatic collapse, but a gradual shift of power and population to new centers of growth. There's also the possibility of natural disasters playing a role. Earthquakes, volcanic eruptions, and floods were common in Mesoamerica and could have caused widespread damage to Olmec cities. For instance, San Lorenzo, one of the major Olmec cities, shows signs of having been deliberately destroyed around 900 BCE, possibly due to a combination of flood damage and human intervention. While natural disasters alone might not destroy a civilization, they can push already stressed societies over the edge, especially if combined with other factors like political instability or economic hardship. What makes the Olmec decline so fascinating is that it doesn't seem to have been a sudden catastrophe, but a gradual, multi-layered process. Most likely, it wasn't one single cause that ended their civilization, but a combination of environmental stress, political change, economic shifts, and possibly outside pressures. Over time, as people left the cities, the monumental centers that once defined Olmec culture, massive stone heads, platform mounds, and ceremonial plazas fell into ruin. Yet, while the Olmec as a distinct culture faded, their influence lived on. Many of their innovations, like the Mesoamerican ball game, religious iconography, and even their calendar systems, were adopted and adapted by the cultures that followed. Also, why? Because they were rediscovered despite their gradual disappearance. The dig-it had really started with archaeology. In the 19th and early 20th centuries, explorers and amateur archaeologists stumbled across some strange, giant stone heads in the Gulf Coast region of Mexico. These heads didn't match anything people thought they knew about ancient Mesoamerican societies. As archaeologists started digging deeper, literally and figuratively, they uncovered cities, ceremonial centers, and artifacts that pointed to a complex, urban society thriving way before the Maya and Aztec rose to power. This forced scholars to rethink the timeline of civilization in the region. Suddenly, the Olmec weren't just a curious footnote. They were possibly the originators of key cultural elements like writing, calendars, and monumental architecture. Nationalism also played a huge role in reshaping the Olmec narrative. In post-revolutionary Mexico, leaders were trying to build a strong, unified national identity rooted in indigenous pride. Celebrating the Olmec and presenting them as the first great civilization of Mexico was politically powerful. It helped shift the focus from the Spanish colonial legacy to a more ancient, homegrown one. Museums were built, textbooks rewritten, and the Olmec became part of Mexico's national story. This cultural revival wasn't always perfectly accurate or free of bias, but it brought the Olmec into the spotlight and gave them a central place in Mesoamerican history. Then came modern science, which really helped fill in the gaps. Carbon dating gave us a better sense of when the Olmec lived, and materials analysis helped researchers figure out where the massive basalt heads came from and how far the Olmec traded. Even more recently, techniques like LiDAR, a type of laser scanning, have revealed hidden structures beneath the jungle, showing that Olmec cities were bigger and more complex than we previously thought. DNA studies haven't told us everything yet, but they're starting to give hints about how the Olmec might be connected to other Mesoamerican peoples. Science is helping confirm things that were once just theories, and sometimes it's turning old assumptions upside down. It's fascinating because when you look at how advanced the Olmecs were, you start to wonder, what if we've underestimated just how smart ancient humans really were? Rogan's all about questioning mainstream narratives, and the Olmecs are a perfect example of how little we actually understand about the deep past. Why don't we talk about them more? Why aren't they front and center in history books? Maybe it's because they don't fit neatly into the timeline we've all been taught. This mystery is one of those rabbit holes that pulls you in deeper the more you learn. From their strange art to the massive architecture to the unexplained gaps in their story, it's like ancient history's version of a cliffhanger. And yeah, it makes you wonder, what else is out there that we've just missed or ignored? If Joe Rogan's taught us anything, it's that sometimes the best questions don't have easy answers, and that's exactly what makes this stuff so fun to think about. Thanks for staying until the end. Write your thoughts below and subscribe for more fascinating content from our channel.